5.2 is our mental health report, and Tammy Santa is going to join us for that.
Good evening, President Davidson, members of the board. I'm excited to be here tonight. I'm going to preface with there's a ton of information within these slides that we won't possibly be able to get into a lot of the details. So if anyone at any point wants to talk in more detail about any of this, happy to do so. So with that, I'm just going to jump right in. I thought it was important to start with a little bit of history and a reminder of where I think for our district social emotional learning kind of took off and continues to grow. And it was within the strategic planning process as it related to Dimension 6. Luckily, I was there and part of that process without knowing maybe where I would land right now. So just important to know that our stakeholders, our community, all of our folks from all different areas really we're kind of saying the same thing. You know, this was an important piece to education, whether we call it social emotional, whole child, the non-academic pieces. So that's where this kind of took off. And from there, I'll hopefully show you a little bit of an update of where we stand now. The second piece is maybe equally as important to give you a framework or a definition of how we look at social emotional learning. And so often in my scope, people go quickly to the other end of the spectrum and they talk more about the extreme mental health and different pieces there. And so if you look at it through this lens, you're going to see it's much more broad, much more important and easy for everybody, no matter where you fall in our education system, to impact social emotional learning for our students. So I hope that definition helps frame this a little bit better. And then the last piece is something that I hope threads through all the work that our groups do. And that's the context of supportive relationships. So whether that is, you know, anything we do, if it gets back to intentional or unintentional positive adult relationships, that's where we're going to see the biggest impact in learning and resilience and all the good things that we do. So that's a piece that any teams that I'm able to support really bring to the table. Quickly, just some roles of how I support social emotional learning for our district. I'll touch on a lot of this throughout the slides, but you'll see two big groups here that I'll continue to pivot back and forth between, and that's going to be the K-12 school counselors. We have 36 of those folks running around the district, and then our clinicians, and we have 13 of those. I wanted to try and define those two roles a little bit more clearer. That might help as we navigate through the rest of the slides. So school social, or well, we'll start with school counselors. Traditionally we called them guidance counselors, and we have moved to just using the term school counselor. So a school counselor is going to be more academic focused, more advising career strengths, goals. They're still going to scratch the surface on social emotional learning, but as it intensifies and moves down a strain, that's when they're going to pass it off to the second group, and these are the clinicians. For whatever reason, we've called this group a lot of different names over the years: school social workers, student assistance program counselors, mental health specialists. So we're going to try and, moving forward, only call that group clinicians, because that's truly what they are, to try and clear up that confusion. And so this group, which is my wheelhouse and where my strengths lie, are truly clinically trained folks who have a real specific skill set in mental health. And the cool part with Westville City School clinicians, for anyone that's aware of trauma work and brain, so we all have a level 1 trauma certification. We look through the brain lens when it comes to education, and it's just a really unique subset that this group has. So just to kind of clarify those two roles for you, there's school psychologists, there's behavior specialists, other folks within social emotional, but these are going to be the two that I would say I support most and that I will kind of go back and forth between tonight. And just a list of other things that I help support. So the goal on these next few slides is to give you a good picture of elementary, middle, and high school as quickly as possible. So if you look at elementary, you're going to see the school counselor side. We have 12 full-time people in 15 buildings, which is huge growth, and we're getting there, with the focus of what we're trying to encourage them to do as it ties to our school counselor curriculum. Notice that the focus doesn't mean that's all they do. So we're trying to push on that focus point. We understand that there's other things, maybe testing, maybe 504s, these other components, but this is where we're really trying to push to see what's in the way of getting to these focus points. So you'll see that throughout. So that's what we're really pushing them to do. This PASS curriculum is our resource we're using to try and just get those basic SEL skills taught. You'll see that we do call on the elementary school counselors to do a little bit more than secondary, just because of the mental health support that we have at the secondary level. So if you flip over to that mental health side, those are your clinicians. We have one from Westerville, and then 2 more days we pick up from Concord to serve our specialized learning communities at 3 buildings. So that's very specific to special education. And they're picking up those IEP minutes. As a whole, everybody at the elementary level has access to Concord. So if for whatever reason their community prevention program, we're able to refer a student and a family over there for no cost. They do have to make it to Concord, but that is a nice resource that all of our families have access to. And here's just a quick breakdown, what that looks like. So how many days each person is at each building. So school counselors right there on the left. You'll see Hawthorne with a plus on it. Gets interesting when you start to have good problems with FTE, and so we had one day where we actually take Zach from Charrington. He spends his 5th day at Hawthorne only in kindergarten, delivering PASS lessons to give them some extra support. But otherwise, that's self-explanatory. The other side, those are your clinicians. Again, Sheila from Westerville and Kristen from Concord covering the 2 days at Whittier. Jumping into middle, you'll see the middle school counselors. Focus gets a little bit more specific to the academic planning, the implementing our counselor curriculum. I think we're doing a much better job of getting back into the classroom at the middle school level, trying to assess strengths, set goals, do things to really get students thinking about what's next for them as they enter high school. Jump over to the mental health side, and you're going to have 4 prevention clinicians. These are all from Concord. So as we've built FTE and capacity at other levels, we've been able to shift these all into middle, so that now every middle school has a full-time person every single day, which I think has really built some capacity and growth for our middle level at the mental health end. So as far as Concord goes, someone is in that building in all of our middle schools every single day. They're on site, they're through Concord. That's grant funded for the most part. They provide no cost sessions, 1 time, 10 times. It just varies by presenting issue. And the only difference in there is heritage, which again, we have some additional need there. So Westville City School clinician picks up 5 days there as well, so they get a little extra support. Again, Jesse Martin at Heritage is there serving primarily special education. And here's our high school picture. So we have 13 high school counselors plus Adam Rex at EOS. Again, similar focus points there. Jump over to the clinician side, grown a bunch here. So Central and South sit at 1.5. We have someone split going back and forth, North at 2. These are Westerville employed, so there's a lot more flexibility here. They carry a special ed caseload to serve those IEP minutes, plus they see anything and everything else that comes their way at the high school level. It gets busy. They're doing a lot of crisis assessment, a lot of school-based counseling that kind of get referred to them from the folks on the left and from admin, and drive a lot of the education in the building as well.
Tammy, can I ask a quick question on that last slide? So the high school clinicians, and you said they serve the IEPs, about how many kids is that? Do you have any idea how many they're serving?
So it's, I would say a comfortable caseload is around 15.
Okay.
North is different. They serve an intensive population, so similar to Heritage and similar to the 3 you saw at the elementary level. So that caseload is very different because the minutes per month are much higher on the intensive classrooms.
Got it.
But when it's just a general mental health IEP, 20 is nice. We're stretching 30 and 35 now.
Oh,
So again, right, so we've added a person this school year, this first time. So that's that half, right, at Central and at South. So Noelle and Sarah, who were trying to run and do everything, now Hannah is kind of that in between where she's shifting a lot of her energy to mental health IEPs. And when you have the same person doing that kind of work, now she's able to help with a lot of other pieces in those classrooms as well, and team taught pieces depending on the IEP needs, and letting the full-time person pick up a lot of the general education needs. Still a dance, but that's why that was added and why we continue to track that. But yeah, we track it down to the minutes per quarter. Good.
thank you.
Our crisis and care team, unfortunately or fortunately, this is a really good group to have in-house. There's 13 of us, so when unfortunate situations happen, this is your group that comes in. If we need to call other folks from the community in to assist, we can. But this is the team that will respond to any building or buildings as needed in the district. So this could be overwhelming, and we could talk data all day. But what really it says is that we're getting on the same page with recording information and trying to track who's coming into our offices and how we're serving students on the counseling end. Elementary's been doing this for a while for us. Now every single building is, and I think that's really important. We are still cleaning it up. So this is just some screenshots of what a sign-in looks like if you're at South. Students are very used to this now. We've obviously hidden student information from the other side of that, but that's just a Google Sheet. So you go to responses and you can quickly see students, how they got there, what time, they're stamped in and out. We're improving this process, and we're able to learn a lot about the traffic coming in and out of our pupil services offices. And again, if you're familiar with Google, it's so easy, it's all live, so you can pull this at any point if they want to use it quarterly to drive practice, if they want to use it semester at the end of the year. Juliet and Ann Baldwin and Suzanne and Barbara and I were able to look at this at any point to help look on a district lens as well. But these are just examples. So this is an elementary building that's had about 1,700 entries so far. We also don't get lost in how big those pie shapes are, because this person's delivered 102 classroom lessons, which we're really focusing on, right? So that's 2,500 kids, 72 small groups, so that's 350. So it's, you know, a little bit of a small sliver, but still making a good impact and still seeing 400 and some kids individually. So able to just extract a lot of these pieces. The elementary are all tracking the same thing, so we can also see district trends. This is a middle school picture. Middle school's newer to this scene, but right, we can break it down by grade level. We can see how they're getting to the office. And then on the right, you can see where we need to clean some things up when 200 and some are other, why they're not able to select something. We'll drill down and figure that out so we can clean that up a little bit, but gives us really quick pictures. Same thing, this is just high school. So Central, this was last year when I don't think they were too sure how this was going to work, and then they did it for 2 months and realized this was pretty cool. So they were able to, again, see things really quickly with 1,700 visits in that short amount of time. Again, they've got a pretty big other chunk there, but we started to pull out patterns within that first week or two. And then bottom one, that's a clinical one. So right out of a high school, if they're seeing 400 kids a year on a pretty intensive basis, those are the top areas that we track presenting issue. So we can say, what do we need, right? So when we're in classrooms, we can teach some stress management, some anxiety, some regulation pieces to try and not just respond to what we're seeing. And again, those small slivers you don't want to see either, right? We're still tracking crisis assessments. We're still tracking children's services calls and other pieces that are really important, so we know how many runs we're making on a regular basis as well. And then the last piece of data, so this is Panorama. So district-wide, this is our big tool that we've been using. We're in year 2. This is what we're assessing, all grades 2 through 12. Same survey that we'll use last year, this year, and next. Those are the 6 areas you can see that we're surveying. And And these are just some screenshots. So you can see the fall administration, we received about 10,000 surveys back, which is fantastic. We've been over 80% every time we've surveyed, which is where you want to be. This is an example of a question you can pull out. You can play all over the place in this panorama dashboard, but right, if you look at sense of belonging, and this is a specific question out of that, if you look on the bell curve, we're doing really well. We're actually above a national average, which we could celebrate and turn the page, or we could look at that breakdown there and realize we got over 1,000 kids who don't want to be here, and then we go after that. Right, you could break this down by your building, by your grade level, separate out all the demographics, everything you want to do. And that's what buildings have done a nice job of. We have a good PD built in with Panorama, so they're here a lot on site. I won't get into the details, but there's a lot of really cool strategies and interventions that a lot of buildings are doing based on this data and lots of other pieces. It's just a piece to the puzzle, but it's been really fun to watch this just be another piece to how we go after social emotional pieces. Some more professional learning. So these are in-house modules that these two groups, school counselors and school clinicians, have put together based on data, based on different patterns and trends that we've seen over the past several years. And the first 5 are available and encouraged at every building, so we're consistent in what we're delivering in-house, led by your school counselors or your clinical team. And the last one is a new one that we're putting together this year, as trauma seems to be kind of the buzzword, but it's not a lot of new information, just presented differently, so we're putting together a little bit of that for next year. Another huge area, everyone that I've spoken about, they should be our experts, they should be our advocates, they should get people as close to that door as possible for whatever issue is happening. This gets a little tiring, but I think they get it, especially if they've ever been up against a long list from your insurance company. And we just got one today, and there was, it was 20-some pages long, and the first 10 weren't even in business, so we get it, right? And so this is just a sample of what we put together. We go through it every quarter as a group and make sure it's accurate and up to date, but these are just really good people we would send our own family to, and we cross that, with waiting lists, with the exact insurance that's accepted, specialty areas, ages, and try and narrow that lovely list that insurance folks give you down to a science. So again, it removes every barrier to get people into a door for some help. I think we have lots of areas to celebrate. We've grown a bunch. We're really improving how we gather data and how we're accountable for what we're doing, how we identify gaps and target areas. Our school counselor curriculum, as much as our school counselors may groan when Juliet and Anna and I talk about it, they're doing a really good job of entertaining us and going through it and trying to stay true to our focus points, resources, PD, a lot of partnerships with a lot of good people, and lots of other things that pop up with programming. Areas to grow. So the biggest thing for me is that I go talk to anyone at the community, parent level. They don't know we have all these great things. And so for the past couple of years, I've worked with Dr. Kellogg and with Greg's office to try and figure out how do we get this message out there better. And so if you haven't looked at the website, I think that did launch. And so this is just one more point of reference, because it's really a little disappointing when you talk to a parent and they don't know we're out there at all until they need us or it's too late. So that website now has a lot of crisis links. It has a lot of other material, so even if they don't make it to us, maybe something on there will point them in the correct direction. But again, just trying to get out in front of things a little bit better with making sure people understand what Westerville does have to offer just in-house, let alone other places. Parent education and awareness series, so we see our neighbors doing this quite a bit, and doesn't mean we need to, but I think we're going to really thoughtfully look at this to see, is this something we want to do? And so we'll start to take off on that this spring while continuing to build the other pieces there that we want to keep doing. And then just a quick thank you. I have to remind myself, as I'm in the community, we get a lot of calls on a regular basis from our neighbors because we are a leader in this area with student well-being, and they want to know how we did it and how we have all these people, and it's really cool. I mean, I'm so glad for the people that surround me every day in this role, and I'm appreciative of the board and the community, and it just speaks a lot to Westerville of how we do in this domain. So I know it was a bunch of information. Happy to field any more questions, thoughts?
That's yuck. And I think the thanks actually, I want to thank Dr. Kellogg, and I want to thank you, Tammy, and your team. John, one of the first things when I re-engaged with the board, came back on the board, one of the first things that excited me so much was your commitment to SEL, to social emotional, and the creation of Tammy's position. At the same time you created Cynthia DeVisa's position. I viewed those as huge leaps forward for this district. And obviously, whenever you're doing something that hasn't been done, not only here, but it hadn't been done, as you put that into play, you know, there's kind of a collective, okay, let's see how it goes. And it has gone remarkably well. When I look at the progress that has been made, the embeddedness we're seeing, and I'm not talking about, I know we've got work yet to do, but in the amount of time that you and your team have been at work with this, and all of our other educators in the district have been working with this, we have seen significant shifts and significant depth as we look at what we're doing here with social-emotional learning. I'm going to be like, I don't know, the old guy that says, get off my lawn. I'm going to be old here for a second. Years ago, people would say, don't talk to me about that stuff. I don't want to talk about how these kids are doing. I don't care how they're feeling. They just need to sit down and do their work. They need to read, they need to write stuff, and they need to do math. Leave the rest of it alone. That was, I'm not saying that Westerville was like that. That was what our country was becoming, you know, kind of in the 90s. There was an awful lot of that said. And that was wrong. And it was extraordinarily short-sighted. And I am very proud of this community for seeing the short-sightedness of that and for being willing to place resources where they are needed. And I know we need more, but to have done what we have done thus far in this district is remarkable. And much of that is due to you and your team. So thank you, Tammy, for all that you do. It's hugely important and has moved us massive fathoms from where we and other districts have been in the past with what we're doing to help our young people develop. Thanks.
So Tammy, I would just say to you and your team, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I see from the staff and from the kids the impact it's making. And I don't know what we would do without you, so thank you.
Tie her up and keep her here forever.
So can I put you on the spot for a second? We were at a middle school meeting the other day, and you were rolling out the middle school component of SEL. And I would ask if you would share with the board the little gratitude lesson activity you share with teachers, because I thought, here's this person who specializes, you know, Tammy's name oftentimes gets associated with some of the most difficult mental health situations we have as a school, but her approach, as you see, is all kids. And so I was fascinated by this little ditty of an exercise she taught to middle school teachers about, here's something you can do in your classroom on a regular basis. So would you mind?
Yeah, that's easy. So, right, sometimes when we say we need to teach social emotional learning, that's when people freak out, right? Let me stick to math, let me stick to science. But then when you say, for example, we could teach gratitude every day, it'll take 1 minute, then they're like, okay, lady, come on, right? So, right, an example is, you know, you start your classroom every day with, what are you grateful for, right? So it'd be like, think, pair, share. So I use the example, which got a little interesting, and Anne's here, so I'll be sure to embarrass her on her favorite smell. But that's what I want you to think about. What is your favorite smell? When you think of this smell, it brings back a really positive memory, a smile, and think about that for a second. Share it with your neighbor, and then I'll share with you one of my favorite ones that my colleague behind me shared with the group. Oh, you will? Hold on one minute. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, favorite smell?
Oh, I would say chili, because it reminds me of winter and my parents making chili and, watching football and playing in the snow.
Mine's similar. My dad's spaghetti sauce.
Yeah.
Same reason. It's family, warmth, love, laughter.
Yep.
I said lasagna because it reminds me of the holidays. We always have that for the holidays.
Sorry.
I like roses, too.
Mine was coconut because my grandmother always smells like coconut. But
I would have to say the smell of bread cooking, because my grandmother used to cook homemade rolls.
Mine's really bad.
We had a few.
It's icy hot because it reminds me of every single track meet I ever enjoyed. And the fact that I'm getting old and use more of it. Yeah.
I was presenting with a few people. Ann Baldwin was one and Chris Pointer was the other, so I thought I was safe. Well, I knew I wasn't with Chris, but I thought Ann. And so Chris's example was gasoline, which I quickly pivoted to Ann. And hers was, go ahead. A clean toddler.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
She got a lot of sympathy after that. But so,
Yeah.
right, like when you looked around and saw each other and shared, right, everyone was smiling, everyone was usually remembering some family component there. And so then if that wasn't enough, then you talk about how gratitude, if done regularly, is our best antidepressant. And so when you get into brain science, right, it releases the exact same chemicals as an antidepressant does. So it's going to trigger your dopamine, your serotonin, and all that good stuff. And you do it regularly enough, even with our unwilling middle school students, they will accidentally do some things in their brain makeup to encourage themselves. So that's what we did to try and make middle school teachers enjoy our lesson for the day.
Thanks, Tammy. I appreciate you doing that on the spot. I just thought it was a fabulous exercise, so
That's awesome.
I'm going to do that every day.
Good stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, sorry, I can't see.
I'd encourage you to check out the website they built and the links to it because it's very, very powerful. And we will begin through Greg Vibrant's communicating that out to the community at large because a lot of what's on there and those resources and the structures and those positions and is all on there for people. So I think it's a good user-friendly site for my kids struggling. Where do I go? Boom, boom. So I think it's exciting. I appreciate their work on that.